The manila folder hit Mason Reed's desk with a soft thud, but the sound might as well have been a gunshot. His attorney's face said everything before a single word was spoken. "They're taking her, Mason. Your ex-wife's legal team has filed for full custody." Mason felt the world collapse around him as he opened the folder with trembling hands. Allie, his 7-year-old daughter, his entire universe, could be ripped away from him by tomorrow evening. If you've ever felt your entire world hanging by a thread, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps share stories that remind us all that sometimes the greatest strength emerges in our most vulnerable moments. Mason stared out the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, the Seattle skyline blurring through unshed tears. 10 years of building Reed Enterprises from nothing, becoming one of the most respected CEOs in the tech industry at just 36, and none of it mattered without Allie. His daughter was the only light left after Catherine walked out 3 years ago, claiming his work consumed him. Now Catherine had returned from Europe with her new husband, a French diplomat, and suddenly wanted full custody of the daughter she'd barely called twice a month. On what grounds? Mason's voice was barely a whisper, broken with emotion. "They're claiming parental neglect due to your work hours," his attorney said, loosening his tie uncomfortably. "The preliminary hearing is tomorrow. Judge Hannity is known to favor mothers in custody disputes." Mason's mind flashed to his daughter's bedroom down the hall from his own, walls painted sunshine yellow because it makes even rainy days happy, Daddy. The thought of those walls empty crushed his chest with an unbearable weight. "I'll lose everything," he murmured, more to himself than his attorney. "You have billions, Mason. You won't lose." "Not the company," Mason interrupted sharply. "Everything that matters." That night, as Mason tucked Allie into bed, her small hands clutched Mr. Whiskers, the stuffed cat he'd given her the day she was born. She sensed his distress despite his best efforts to hide it. "Are you sad, Daddy?" Her innocent eyes peered up at him, filled with a wisdom beyond her years. Mason swallowed hard. "A little bit, sunshine. But don't worry about me." "Is it because Mommy came back?" Allie's perception had always been unervingly accurate. "Something like that," he admitted, brushing her dark curls from her forehead. Allie's tiny hand reached up to touch his cheek. "I heard Mrs. Abernathy say to Miss Claire that Mommy wants me to live with her. But I don't want to go, Daddy. I want to stay with you." The words shattered what remained of Mason's composure. He gathered his daughter in his arms, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, memorizing the feeling of her small body against his chest. If this was his last night as a father, he would burn every second into his memory. "I love you more than anything in the whole wide world, Alley Cat," he whispered against her hair. "I love you more than all the stars in the sky," she responded with their usual bedtime ritual. After Allie fell asleep, Mason retreated to his home office. The custody papers mocked him from his desk. The familiar urge to lose himself in work pulled at him, the same workaholic tendency that Catherine had cited in her divorce filing. But tonight, he pushed it away. Instead, he called the one person who had always been honest with him. "Claire, I need you to cancel all my meetings tomorrow." His executive assistant's voice betrayed her surprise. "All of them? Even the Nakamura merger?" "Especially that one. I'm setting one condition for myself tonight." Mason's voice grew stronger with resolve. "From this moment forward, no business meeting will ever again take priority over my daughter." What Mason didn't know was that this decision would not only define his custody battle but would completely transform his company, his relationships, and ultimately his life. Claire Donovan had served as Mason's right hand for 6 years, watching her brilliant but emotionally guarded boss build an empire while simultaneously building walls around his heart. She was the only person at Reed Enterprises who knew the truth, that their fearless CEO cried in his car the day Catherine left, not because his wife was gone, but because he feared losing time with Allie. "It's about time," Claire said softly. "What can I do to help?" "I need everything you have on Judge Hannity." And I need you to locate someone for me, Daniel Thorne. Claire gasped. Your former partner? The one who? Yes, Mason cut her off. The one I forced out to secure the Harrison contract. I need to make things right. After hanging up, Mason pulled out a legal pad and began to write. By dawn, he had outlined a completely restructured business model for Reed Enterprises, one that would allow him to be both CEO and father. He would no longer be the absent parent Catherine accused him of being, nor would he sacrifice the company he'd built. There had to be another way. The morning arrived too quickly. Mason made Allie's favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes shaped like animals, and fought back tears as she giggled at his attempt at an elephant. It looks more like a potato with a nose, Daddy. A potato with artistic flair, he countered, making her laugh harder. As they ate, Mason made a decision. He wouldn't shield her from what was happening. Allie, there's something important we need to talk about. Today, I have to go to court, and a judge is going to decide whether you'll stay living with me or go to live with Mom. Allie's fork clattered to her plate. But I don't want to leave you. I don't want that either, sunshine. But sometimes grown-ups need help making big decisions, and that's what judges do. Can I tell the judge I want to stay with you? Tears welled in her eyes. Mason's heart splintered. I'm not sure if you'll get to speak to the judge today, but I promise I will fight with everything I have to keep us together. He drove her to school, watching in the rearview mirror as she clutched Mr. Whiskers. She never took the stuffed cat to school anymore, claiming she was too big for toys, but today was different. At the courthouse, Mason's stomach twisted when he spotted Catherine and her husband, Jean-Pierre, sitting with their attorney. Catherine looked immaculate as always, her blonde hair styled perfectly, diamond earrings catching the light. She avoided his gaze. Mason's attorney whispered urgent strategy in his ear, but Mason barely heard him. His mind was replaying every missed bedtime story, every school event he'd been late to, every weekend interrupted by urgent calls from the office. Had he truly been as absent as Catherine claimed? When Judge Hannity entered, Mason felt his future hanging in the balance. The proceedings began with Catherine's attorney painting Mason as an obsessive workaholic who delegated his daughter's care to nannies and housekeepers. Each accusation landed like a physical blow. Your Honor, Catherine's attorney concluded, Ms. Beaumont can provide Allie with a stable home environment with two present parents, rather than being raised by domestic staff while her father builds his empire. When it was Mason's turn, he did something that shocked everyone in the courtroom, including his own attorney. He asked to speak directly to the judge. Mr. Reed, this is highly irregular, Judge Hannity frowned. I understand, Your Honor, but this isn't a regular case. This is about my daughter's life, and mine. The judge hesitated, then nodded. Mason approached the bench, his heart pounding. Your Honor, I won't stand here and deny that I've worked long hours. I built Reed Enterprises from nothing, and yes, that took sacrifice. But never, not once, did I sacrifice my daughter's happiness intentionally. He took a deep breath. Last night, I made a decision. This morning, before coming here, I implemented a complete restructuring of my company. I've appointed Daniel Thorne, my former partner, as co-CEO. I've established new protocols that ensure I'm home every day by 5 p.m., with no exceptions. I've converted the unused office adjacent to mine into a space for Allie, so she can do homework or play if she needs to be with me after school. Mason pulled out his phone. I'd like to show you something, if I may. The judge nodded, and Mason pulled up a photo gallery. This is Allie's science fair project from last month. We built a solar system model that took us 3 weekends. This is her ballet recital from last week. I was in the front row. This is us making Christmas cookies, Sunday morning pancakes, Halloween costumes. His voice cracked. I'm not perfect, Your Honor. I've missed things I shouldn't have missed. But I've been there for every nightmare, every fever, every lost tooth and scraped knee. I've braided her hair every morning since she was 3 because she says I do it better than anyone else. Mason looked directly at Catherine for the first time. I don't wish to deprive my daughter of her mother. Catherine should be part of Allie's life, a big part. But please don't take my daughter away from the only consistent home she's known since she was 4 years old. The courtroom was silent when he finished. Even Catherine looked shaken. Judge Hannity removed her glasses. Mr. Reed, Ms. Beaumont, I'd like to see you both in my chambers, please. Behind closed doors, the judge spoke frankly. I've seen thousands of custody battles, and rarely do I see parents who truly put their child first. Usually, I see parents using children as pawns in their own emotional chess match. She looked at Catherine. Ms. Beaumont, you left the country for 3 years, during which time Mr. Reed established himself as Allie's primary caregiver. Your sudden desire for full custody coincides conveniently with your new marriage and settled status. Then she turned to Mason. Mr. Reed, while I'm impressed by your willingness to restructure your entire company, I have to wonder why it took a custody battle to prompt these changes. Mason nodded, accepting the criticism. Because I was afraid, Your Honor. Afraid that if I wasn't constantly vigilant, constantly building and securing, everything could be taken away. My company became my fortress. But I realize now that in building walls to protect what I love, I was actually walling myself off from the most important part of it, time with my daughter. The judge considered them both for a long moment. Here's what we're going to do. I'm ordering a temporary shared custody arrangement for 3 months. During this time, a court-appointed evaluator will observe both households and provide a recommendation for permanent arrangements. As they left chambers, Catherine approached Mason in the hallway. For the first time, he noticed the uncertainty in her eyes. I never meant to abandon her, she said quietly. I just couldn't stay with you anymore. I know, Mason replied. But leaving me didn't have to mean leaving her. Catherine looked down. Jean-Pierre thinks having Allie with us would make us a real family. The revelation confirmed Mason's suspicion. This wasn't about what was best for Allie, it was about Catherine's new life. She's not an accessory, Catherine. She's a person with feelings, routines, and a life that you've been absent from. Catherine's eyes flashed. And you were absent while we were married. You're right, Mason admitted, surprising her. I was. And I'm sorry for that. But I learned from my mistakes. Have you? Before she could answer, Mason's phone rang, Allie's school. His blood ran cold as he answered. Mr. Reed, there's been an incident. Allie had some kind of anxiety attack during class. The school nurse is with her now, but she's asking for you. Mason was already moving toward the exit. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He found Allie curled up on a cot in the nurse's office, her face streaked with tears, clutching Mr. Whiskers. Daddy, she cried when she saw him, launching herself into his arms. I'm here, sunshine. I'm right here. He held her tight, feeling her small body tremble. Emma said her parents got divorced and now she never sees her dad anymore, Allie hiccuped through tears. She said you might not be my daddy anymore after today. Mason's heart broke. Allie, look at me. He gently lifted her chin. Nothing, absolutely nothing, could ever make me not your daddy. Not court, not judges, not anything in the whole world. Do you understand? She nodded uncertainly. The judge hasn't made a final decision yet. For now, you'll spend some time with me and some time with Mom. And no matter what happens, I will always be your father, and I will always love you more than anything. That evening, as Mason tucked Allie into bed in her sunshine yellow room, she asked the question he'd been dreading. Will I have to go with Mommy tomorrow? Mason sat on the edge of her bed. Not tomorrow. The judge wants us to try something first. You'll stay with me most of the time, but you'll also spend some weekends with Mom and Jean-Pierre. How does that sound? Allie considered this. Will you be sad when I'm not here? Mason smiled sadly. I'll miss you terribly. But I'll know you're coming back, and that will make me happy. Promise you won't work all the time while I'm gone? I promise. In fact, I've made some big changes at work. Mason reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. I have something for you. Inside was a silver locket. When Allie opened it, she found a tiny photo of the two of them making funny faces. Now you'll always have me with you, even when we're apart, Mason said. Allie clutched the locket. I love it, Daddy. As he kissed her goodnight, Mason realized that his daughter had given him the most precious gift, perspective. In his drive to build an empire that could never be taken away, he'd nearly lost sight of why he was building it in the first place. The next morning, Mason walked into Reed Enterprises with Allie beside him, her hand in his. Employees stared in surprise as they made their way to his office. Claire met them at the elevator, smiling warmly at Allie. Your new office is ready, Miss Reed. Allie's eyes widened. I have an office? Claire winked at Mason. Right next to your dad's. We thought you might want to be CEO in training. The adjacent room that had once been a sterile conference space had been transformed overnight. One half contained a desk perfectly sized for Allie, with a computer, art supplies, and books. The other half had been turned into a comfortable lounge area with beanbags, a small bookshelf filled with her favorite stories, and a play area. This is for me? Allie gasped. For after school and any time you need to be here with me, Mason explained. And look, he pointed to a door that connected directly to his office. You can come see me anytime. As Allie explored her new space, Daniel Thorne appeared in the doorway. Mason hadn't seen his former partner in 2 years, not since their bitter fallout over company direction. She looks just like you, Daniel observed quietly. Same determined chin. Mason extended his hand. Thank you for coming back. Daniel hesitated before shaking it. You said it was about Allie. I always liked that kid. I need a co-CEO, someone who knows this company as well as I do. Mason met his old friend's eyes. Someone who was right when they said we were sacrificing too much for growth. Daniel raised an eyebrow. You're serious about this? Dead serious. I almost lost my daughter yesterday. I won't let that happen again. Over the following weeks, Reed Enterprises underwent a transformation. The cutthroat culture Mason had fostered softened into something more sustainable. Employees with children began bringing them to the newly established company daycare. Meeting schedules were restructured to respect family time. Most surprisingly to the business world, profits didn't fall, they rose. Employee retention improved dramatically. Innovation flourished in an environment where burnout was no longer a badge of honor. Catherine's first weekend with Allie arrived too quickly. Mason helped his daughter pack, his stomach in knots as he folded her favorite pajamas. What if she doesn't remember what I like for breakfast? Allie worried. Then you can tell her, Mason reassured her. And if you need anything at all, you can call me. Watching Catherine drive away with Allie in the back seat was one of the hardest moments of Mason's life. The house felt cavernous without his daughter's laughter. For the first time in years, he had a weekend completely to himself, the very thing he'd once claimed to want more of, and he had no idea what to do with it. Claire called him that evening. We have a situation with the Tokyo expansion. The zoning permits were rejected. The old Mason would have immediately jumped on a plane. Instead, he asked, can it wait until Monday? It really can't, Claire replied. The deadline for appeal is Tuesday. Mason sighed. Set up a video conference for tomorrow morning. I'll handle it remotely. After hanging up, Mason wandered into Allie's room and sat on her bed. Mr. Whiskers, the one thing she'd left behind, stared back at him with button eyes. She'll be back, he told the stuffed cat, feeling slightly ridiculous but needing to say the words aloud. His phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. "Ali won't stop crying. Wants to come home." Mason's heart raced as he called Catherine immediately. "What happened? Is she hurt?" Catherine sounded exasperated. "She's fine. She just doesn't want to be here. I've tried everything, Mason. She won't even eat dinner. Put her on the phone." A moment later, Ali's tearful voice came through. "Daddy? Hey, sunshine. What's going on?" "I want to come home," she sobbed. "Mommy doesn't know that I don't like tomatoes anymore and Mr. Whiskers is all alone and—" "Take a deep breath for me, Ali cat," Mason interrupted gently. "Remember what we talked about? This is new for everyone, including your mom. She hasn't had the chance to learn all the things about you that have changed. But I miss you. I miss you too. So much. But remember your locket? I'm always right there with you." He heard her small fingers clicking open the locket. "Can you come get me? Please?" Mason closed his eyes, torn between wanting to rescue his daughter and knowing that would undermine the custody arrangement. "How about this? If you still feel this way in the morning, I'll talk to your mom about bringing you home early. But I want you to try, really try, to give this a chance. Can you do that for me?" A small sniffle. "I guess. That's my brave girl. I love you more than anything in the whole wide world. I love you more than all the stars in the sky," she whispered back. After they hung up, Mason paced his empty house, fighting the urge to drive to Catherine's immediately. Instead, he did something he hadn't done in years. He called his sister, Emma. "The prodigal brother returns," Emma answered dryly. "To what do I owe this rare communication?" "I'm sorry I've been absent," Mason said, surprising them both with his directness. "I've been re-evaluating everything lately." Emma was silent for a moment. "Catherine called me, you know. About the custody hearing." Mason stiffened. "What did she want?" "To ask if I thought she was doing the right thing. I told her no." "You did?" "Mason, you might be a workaholic pain in the ass, but you're an amazing father. I've watched you with Ali. That girl is your world." Tears stung Mason's eyes. "She's with Catherine this weekend. She wants to come home. And you didn't immediately charge over there like a bull? I'm impressed. Character growth." Despite himself, Mason laughed. "I'm trying." "Come over for dinner," Emma said suddenly. "Bring those legal papers you're undoubtedly reviewing instead of relaxing. You can work at my kitchen table while I feed you something that isn't takeout." For the first time in years, Mason accepted his sister's invitation. At Emma's house, his 7-year-old nephew, Jake, bombarded him with questions about rockets and computers while his 10-year-old niece, Sophie, showed him her science project. The normalcy of family dinner, something he'd been too busy to participate in for years, felt like a revelation. "You know," Emma said as they washed dishes later, "Ali needs this too. Family beyond just you. Friends, cousins, aunts, uncles. Catherine taking her for weekends isn't just about Catherine's rights, it's about Ali having a broader life." Mason dried a plate thoughtfully. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You've just been too busy to notice." The next morning, Catherine texted again, "Ali's fine now. We're taking her to the aquarium." An attached photo showed Ali smiling tentatively beside a touch pool, Jean-Pierre kneeling next to her pointing at something in the water. Mason felt a complex mix of emotions, relief that she was adjusting, jealousy that someone else was sharing these moments, and a surprising amount of gratitude that Catherine was making an effort. He texted back, "She loves the octopus exhibit. Don't miss it." The response came quickly, "Already there. She says they're her favorite because they're smart like her daddy." Something shifted in Mason's heart, a recognition that perhaps this arrangement, difficult as it was, might actually be good for Allie. She deserved a mother who was trying, even if imperfectly. When Allie returned Sunday evening, she chattered excitedly about the aquarium, the new books Catherine had bought her, and how Jean-Pierre had helped her build a fort in the guest room that was now her room at their house. And Mommy said next time, we might go to the ballet. But I told her I'd only go if you could come too sometimes, because ballet is our special thing. Mason's eyebrows rose. What did she say to that? She said maybe we could all go together sometime. Would that be okay, Daddy? The old anger and hurt Mason had carried since Catherine left suddenly felt heavier than it was worth. If that's what would make you happy, sunshine, then yes. It would be okay. As the weeks passed, the temporary custody arrangement settled into a workable rhythm. Mason maintained his commitment to restructuring Reed Enterprises, even when the board questioned his decision to turn down a lucrative contract that would have required extensive travel. My daughter is not negotiable, he informed them calmly. Find another way to make the deal work within our new parameters. Daniel, true to his innovative spirit, did exactly that, creating a virtual project management system that allowed them to service international clients without the extensive travel previously required. The court-appointed evaluator made regular visits, observing Mason with Allie and taking copious notes. During one such visit, as Allie explained her science project to the evaluator, Mason's phone rang with an emergency from the office. The evaluator watched carefully as Mason excused himself to take the call in the kitchen. He kept it brief, asking Daniel to handle the situation, and returned within minutes. You didn't rush off to the office, the evaluator noted after Allie went to get her drawings. That was the old me, Mason replied. I've realized something important. The company will survive a crisis without me physically present. But those minutes with my daughter? They're irreplaceable. 2 months into the evaluation period, Catherine requested a meeting with Mason without lawyers present. They met at a quiet cafe halfway between their homes. Jean-Pierre has been offered a position back in Paris, Catherine said without preamble. He's considering taking it. Mason's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. And Allie? Catherine twisted her wedding ring nervously. That's what I wanted to discuss. I've seen how she is with you, Mason. How settled. How happy. She took a deep breath. I love my daughter. But I'm not sure uprooting her to a country where she doesn't speak the language, away from her school and friends and, you, is the right thing. Mason studied his ex-wife's face, seeing real conflict there. What are you saying, Catherine? I'm saying that I'm withdrawing my petition for full custody. I'd like to modify our arrangement. Primary custody remains with you, with extended visits to us during school breaks and summers. Mason was stunned. What changed your mind? Catherine's eyes filled with unexpected tears. Watching you change. You're not the same man I left, Mason. You've put Allie first in a way I never thought you could. She wiped her eyes quickly. And if I'm being honest, seeing her distress that first weekend, I realized I was doing this more for Jean-Pierre and me than for her. That's not fair to Allie. For the first time since their divorce, Mason felt a glimmer of respect for his ex-wife. Thank you for putting her needs first. There's one condition, Catherine added. I want regular video calls, at least twice a week. And I want your commitment that you'll bring her to visit wherever we are, at least 3 times a year. Done, Mason agreed without hesitation. And I'll make sure she knows that this wasn't you abandoning her again. That this was you making a difficult choice for her benefit. Catherine's shoulders relaxed. I'd appreciate that. The final evaluation hearing was largely a formality. With Catherine and Mason in agreement, Judge Hannity reviewed the evaluator's report, which strongly favored Mason's home as Allie's primary residence. The court appreciates when parents can set aside their differences for the welfare of their child, the judge noted. The report indicates that Mr. Reed has made substantial changes to accommodate his parental responsibilities, and that Ms. Beaumont has recognized the importance of stability in her daughter's life. As they left the courthouse, Mason felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Allie would remain with him. Catherine would still be part of her life. The constant fear that had driven him for months could finally subside. That evening, as they celebrated with ice cream in the park, Allie asked the question Mason had been waiting for. "Does this mean I don't have to go live with Mommy?" Mason chose his words carefully. "It means your home will stay with me, but you'll still visit Mom and Jean-Pierre during vacations and summers. They're moving to Paris, and you'll get to see France and learn some French." Allie considered this, licking her ice cream cone thoughtfully. "Will you come visit too?" "Sometimes, if that's okay with your mom." "And we'll video call them often." Allie nodded, seemingly satisfied. "I'm glad I get to stay with you, Daddy. But I'm also glad Mommy wants to see me." Mason marveled at his daughter's capacity for understanding and forgiveness. "You know, Allie Cat, you're the smartest person I know." She giggled. "Even smarter than all those people who work for you?" "Especially smarter than them," he confirmed seriously. 6 months later, Reed Enterprises was featured in Business Week as a case study in corporate restructuring. The article highlighted how the company had maintained growth while implementing family-friendly policies that had become the envy of the industry. Mason, photographed with Allie in her office for the article, received hundreds of emails from parents in similar high-pressure positions, asking how he'd managed the transition. In response, he started a mentorship program for executives struggling to balance parenting with leadership roles. The program quickly expanded into a foundation dedicated to reshaping corporate culture across industries. Allie thrived under the new arrangement, excelling in school and developing a close relationship with Catherine through their regular video calls. Her first visit to Paris was documented in photos that Mason kept in his office, Allie beaming beside the Eiffel Tower, Catherine showing her how to eat a proper French pastry, Jean-Pierre teaching her to say bonjour. One evening, as Mason helped Allie with her homework, she looked up suddenly with a serious expression. "Daddy, are you happier now? Even though you don't work as much?" Mason was surprised by the question. "Why do you ask, sunshine?" "Because you smile more. And you don't look at your phone during dinner anymore." Mason pulled his daughter into a hug. "I am happier. Much happier. Because I finally figured out what's really important." Allie returned his hug fiercely. "Us? Us," he confirmed. "Always us." That night, as he tucked her into bed, Mason reflected on how close he had come to losing everything that truly mattered. Not his company or his wealth, but the small person breathing softly beneath her sunshine yellow comforter. In the quiet of Allie's room, Mason whispered the truth he had finally come to understand: without his child, he would have lost everything he had built, not his business empire, but his heart, his purpose, his very soul. The empire could crumble tomorrow, and as long as Allie remained, Mason Reed would still be the richest man in the world. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us of what truly matters in life. Sometimes our greatest challenges reveal our deepest truths, and it's never too late to rebuild what matters most.